Hello, my wonderful patrons, and welcome to December's video about the energies of the month and our new goddess for December. So, I can see in the picture that my little owl is turned around the wrong way. Sorry, I just don't like him facing the wall. He looks like he's done something naughty. So, December is nearly upon us. In fact, by the time I get this video up, it might actually be upon us. I'm hoping to get it up a little bit in advance, so we'll see. And as we start December, we again begin the month again as in November on a waning moon. The full moon was towards the end of November, the full Gemini moon, which I actually really loved that full moon. I don't know how you guys felt about that, but I love that energy. So yeah, we're starting December on a waning moon. And in fact, just after a half moon, so we're on the kind of the last few days before the dark moon. And we also start the month with Mercury retrograde. And I can't remember if I talked about this. I think I did talk about this in Circle on the video, that I used to really stress out about Mercury retrogrades because I would find, for me, mostly it was like mechanical things breaking down seemed to be a problem for me. So that, like, you know, my washing machine would break or my car would break down, you know, things like that. But I've actually found that if I kind of lean into that more revision of ideas energy, that I don't have the same experience of things actually breaking on me. So yeah, I don't actually mind the Mercury retrograde now, but it does, the timing of it just finishes literally just before the dark moon. So Mercury goes direct in GMT at like 9:20 in the evening on the 6th, and then the new moon is the morning of the 7th. So obviously those times won't be exactly the same wherever you are, but Mercury will be going direct just before the new moon. And because the sun is in Sagittarius, that means that our new moon is also in Sagittarius, because a new moon, or dark moon as I usually call it, is when the moon and the sun are in the same place at the same time. And that's why we can't see the moon. So Sagittarius is a sign that is very much about kind of freedom of expression and almost kind of like adventurousness as well, and the kind of quest for truth and higher learning, you know. So not kind of like gossip. That would be seen as more of a Gemini thing. It's more about, like, you know, the meaning behind things and stuff like that. So yeah, so this dark moon time can be a really good kind of soul searching. I love this moon because, you know, as it falls just before preceding the new year, it is a really good time to figure out, you know, what am I taking forward into next year? What is my quest next year? What is my new adventure that I'm going to be going into? So yeah, I find this a really good time for figuring that out. So on the dark moon, it might be a good idea to use cards if you use them, or runes, or just, you know, journaling is really great. You know, just thinking about looking at your goals for next year maybe, and seeing how that kind of aligns with other things that are happening globally and in your life and stuff like that, and kind of looking for freedom often, you know, looking for extra, like if things are kind of looking same old and you're thinking, oh, it's just gonna be another year, and you know, think about where you're going to be at the end of the year. And if you kind of carry on your current, you know, if you think of Sagittarius as the archer shooting arrows, you know, and if you think about the path that your arrows are currently being shot on, you know, where are they going to, like, sorry, I'm saying, you know, you know, but stick with me. So you follow that arrow's path, and if you stay on the trajectory, you know, with your bow held, I did it again, with your bow held as it is now, where is your arrow going to fall? And how does that feel to you? How are you happy with that? Are you happy with where your arrow is going to fall? It could be that you totally are, and you just stay on the same course that you were already on. This might be a larger, longer quest than the one that you were traveling again. I should count them up. It's really annoying. It's weird how I kind of like latch onto a phrase and then I'll keep saying it in certain videos. I think it's still kind of like a nervous thing when I start making videos, it's still kind of lingering on. So, but if you're not happy with where your arrow is going to fall, if you stay in your current pose and trajectory with your Sagittarian bow and arrow. Where would you like it to fall? Who do you want to be by the end of the year? Where do you want to go? What things will you have accomplished? And what are you doing to get to those things? And I mean, like, in a day-to-day, you know, this circle is very much about everyday magic. And so I'm not talking about like a huge life-changing, well, I am talking about life-changing things, but I'm not talking about doing a massive kind of big jarring shift. I'm talking about little, you know, if you think of that arrow again, if you shoot it sort of that way, you know, and it goes, and if you just slightly tilt your aim just a tiny fraction, that arrow is going to fall in a completely different place, because even though that tiny little adjustment is literally tiny, because that arrow is continuing to fly in that slightly new direction, it will end up really far away from where your original arrow was. I know I'm getting a bit metaphorical here, but I hope that you understand what I'm getting at, is that you don't have to make massive, difficult changes. You can just make slight adjustments, and that can result in a very different outcome. So yeah, have a think about that at this dark moon, and then as the crescent appears, you know, we can start putting those plans into action, start kind of actually solidifying those goals into what you're going to be doing next year. And then, you know, everything's kind of wrapping up for the end of the year, and we have solstice very closely followed by the full moon later on in December. So the solstice is on the 21st, and then the full moon in Cancer full moon, is on the 22nd, and it's always the Cancer full moon somewhere around this time of year, because Cancer is the opposite sign to Sagittarius. Well, to Capricorn really, because that's what we're kind of just shifting. We shift into Capricorn on the solstice. The sun moves into Capricorn. I hope you're following me here. I'm a bit garbled. So the sun moves into Capricorn, and then almost immediately we've got the full moon in the opposite sign of Cancer. And Cancer and Capricorn, that axis is, you know, they're on opposite sides of the zodiac, and they're kind of like the father and mother energy of the zodiac. So that can be lovely if you have a lovely relationship with that father and mother energy, but the full moon can also trigger some difficult things around that energy if you are in a difficult place with that. You know, if you've lost a loved one perhaps, or if your relationship with the people who should be nurturing you in a kind of parental way are not, you know, if you have a difficult relationship with those people. So this full moon shines a light on that, and, you know, coming as it does in between the solstice and Christmas, or, you know, Yule is obviously the solstice if you celebrate Yule. We tend to do it like a secular Christmas celebration in our family as well, so we actually celebrate, and it works for me because I feel much more like celebrating the return of the light, whereas the solstice is in Wales, the winter solstice will be the shortest day. Obviously where you live it will be different. So if you're in the northern hemisphere, it's the shortest day of the year, whereas in the southern hemisphere, it's the longest day of the year. But for everywhere, it is the same solstice. You know, it is that pause. And it's almost like a chance to kind of catch your breath before all the kind of crazy Christmassy or Yule celebrations and things are going on. And yeah, like I say, I tend to find it... I don't feel like celebrating on the solstice. That's actually a day for me where I feel very, very inward and feel very much like... I'm sure you will have heard about that Danish concept of hygge. I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly. It's like an idea of kind of snuggling up at home with your loved ones with lots of candles and maybe reading a book and just kind of having kind of cozy time. And for me, Yule is just, it's that. And then when Christmas rolls around and you can start to see, you know, like on the 25th, the shift in the light is starting to be noticeable. You know, before that it's almost unnoticeable, the fact that there is a little bit more light. But by the 25th, you can start to notice it a little bit more. And so that does feel like a more celebratory day for me. It's like, yes, the light is returning. It's noticeable now. we are going to have a spring again. I actually made myself hot chocolate because it's pretty chilly and windy and rainy here in Wales today. So yeah, that's the kind of energies of things that are going on in December. And obviously it's usually a very busy month for lots of people, but I do try and take that solstice pause time as a pause time. And then we also have that kind of weird liminal space that happens after Boxing Day, you know, after the kind of Christmas Yule, whatever it is you celebrate, or perhaps you don't celebrate anything, but for me, I find that we have kind of like busy, 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 and then all of a sudden it's like whoosh, weird, it's not New Year's, Christmas is finished, and you've got those like kind of few days of liminal space, which is kind of like the space between the years. And I find that really good space for dreaming into the next year, for kind of really finalising what I'm going to start working on in January and February. I like to do readings a lot at this time. I like to do more kind of cozying up. I like to go on just kind of like walks outside if the weather is reasonable enough to permit that. And yeah, that kind of thing. So obviously this is kind of personal to me, some of this, but I hope that will resonate for you a little bit, and you can think about what your traditions are, you know, or if you don't have any traditions for this time of year, what would you like your traditions to be? You know, you can choose that. So that is the kind of lunar and solar, I guess, because we talked about the sun as well, and we talked about the signs, you know, moving over from Sagittarius to Capricorn and things like that, the kind of planetary stuff that is going on in December. And that brings us on to the goddess who has stepped forward for us for December. And I think you're going to like this, especially Elaine, because this is very pertinent for you, with awake being your word for next year. So let me show you who it is. Pele. And her word on the card is awakening. And Pele is a Hawaiian volcano goddess, a fire goddess. And I'll read you a little bit about it. This card is from the Goddess Oracle. I used this deck this month by Amy Sophia Marashinsky and illustrated by Joanna Gento. And it says for Pele, awakening: I surge, I pulse, I throb, I am never still. I am perpetual vibration, a rhythmic beat, the constant hum that you hear. I am always moving way down in the deeps with fiery vitality, in places you can only feel when necessary, with dramatic, fierce, volcanic eruptions. I wake you up with lava and fire. I say, pay attention. And I thought, wow, what a kind of juxtaposition to this more, for me, in this northern hemisphere, the kind of turning inward and solstice actually being an actual still point, whereas this card, this goddess, is saying you are never truly still. There are always things going on below the surface. And it says that she is the volcano goddess of the Polynesian people of Hawaii. According to legend, she appears to people as a beautiful and mysterious young woman just before her volcano is about to erupt, or as a gnarled old woman who lights her cigarette with a snap of her fingers. And the meaning of the card, I'm not reading all of this out of here because, you know, there's no need to read every single bit. Pele's appearance signals a need for awakening. Have you been sitting still for too long? Have you been lulled into sleep by the evenness in your life? Has reality been too slippery to grasp? Get ready to awaken your awareness and come into full consciousness. Now is the time to see things as they really are, to initiate change so things can be as you want them to be. Now is the time to wake up to your potential and power, to move and shake. Pay attention to all that life is telling you. Pele says that when you nurture awakening, your life becomes creative rather than reactive, an infinitely more powerful place to be. So this is a very fiery, active, movement-orientated goddess. This is not a kind of gentle, what we would stereotypically call feminine energy. This feels a more stereotypically masculine energy, and I think that's very interesting after our month of Eve, where we were thinking more of that kind of earthy, maternal energy. And Pele, she is not maternal, she is sexy, she is explosive, she is angry, she is also a destroyer, she destroys things, and she kind of forces, she's a much more aggressive force, an aggressive goddess. So that is challenging in a different way from Eve. I'm just gonna have a little sip of my hot chocolate. I'll read you a little bit from if I can pick it up. From the Encyclopedia of Goddesses and Heroines. There's quite a large chunk on Pele in here, actually. Pele always had, and she doesn't come off so good in this story. Pele always had a fiery temperament. She spent her girlhood setting things aflame, displeasing her sister, the sea goddess Namaka. After Pele caused a conflagration by toying with underworld fires, Haumea, who was her mother, realised there would be no peace while fire and water lived in the same household. She convinced Pele to move. Pele set off in a canoe with several siblings, including the cloud goddess Hiiaka. I'm probably completely mispronouncing these names, so I'm sorry about that. If you know how to pronounce them, then please do let me know. For many days at sea, the family found only atolls too tiny to support life. So Pele used a divining rod to locate places to build islands, then caused them to be born in eruptions from volcanoes. But Pele found no peace, for Namaka soon arrived. Ocean and fire met in a tremendous brawl, of which Pele got the worst, dissolving into a plume of steam above Maui. She disappeared into the Hawaiian volcanoes, where she still lives. Her people honour her as creator and destroyer. Into her craters they cast offerings, cut hair, sugarcane, white birds, money, strawberries and hibiscus flowers. Some legends claim human beings were once tossed into the lava, but few scholars find evidence for such rites. Pele sometimes dozed in her crater, sending her spirit wandering, and then he tells a little story which I will pass on, but not necessarily in this session. Now, if you've got this book, you can obviously read. There's a few little entries about Pele, but that's kind of the main section about it. So we have this kind of boisterous, aggressive, she is a goddess who is like, wake up, do what you need to do, and she is bringing that energy of taking up space, of burning, of being bigger and brighter than everybody else, that kind of volcanic whoosh of creation. And also obviously with the lava and the smoke can destroy things as well. There's a lot of anger there, but there's also a lot of creative potential. So I think that's a really interesting starting point for our goddess for this month. I'm going to end this video in a moment, and I'll be recording the ritual for our meditation and ritual for welcoming Pele and saying goodbye and thank you to Eve. And I'm going to use the ritual suggestion in the Goddess Oracle, in the Goddess Oracle as a, the sun's just literally come out, which is really nice. I don't know if it's going to make me all kind of weirdly bright though. I'm going to use this as a basis for the meditation, but I'm going to kind of do my own thing with it. So if you have this deck, you can kind of refer back to this if you want to. So I hope that sounds not too frightening. I was a bit like, whoa, I don't know if I'm quite ready for this energy, but that's exactly it, isn't it? You aren't ready for this energy. You're never ready. You're never going to go, oh yeah, I really want a volcano to erupt in my life right now, because no, you don't want that. I don't want that. I'm quite happy with my comforting things going in little increments as I like them, rather than in huge whooshes. So yeah, it'll be interesting, and I hope it sounds good to you too. So I'm going to record the meditation now, and I'll hopefully get these videos up for you as soon as possible. Thank you so much for being here. You are wonderful, wonderful, and very much appreciated. Thank you.